Avatans is basically keen in interested in Indic knowledge, tradition, language, culture. He's a writer in many online magazines and portals, and also he's a Hindi poet. Before we start today's session, one thing, because of some technical glitch we couldn't show yesterday, and that was yesterday morning. Yesterday our media conference was supposed to start with Anupam Kherji's keynote. As we all know, he couldn't stay here, but he kindly and graciously shared one video that he requested to show. Unfortunately, we couldn't show yesterday, so whoever not there yesterday didn't miss anything, but we are going to start with that. And then I will request Avatans to take over. Thank you.
Sisters and brothers, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Hindu Media Conference of the World Hindu Congress 2018. I was looking forward to meeting you all personally, but today I have to be in Toronto for the world premiere of my film Hotel Mumbai at the Toronto International Film Festival. The film is about the terrorist attack on Taj Hotel in Mumbai on 26/11. So I will miss the conference, but I'm sure our roads will align again in the near future. September 2018 is a special month and year. 125 years ago, Swami Vivekananda delivered his memorable speech that not only reverberated in the parliament of the world's religion, but continued as a guiding force for Hindus around the globe. It was a time when this newly formed nation, the United States of America, barely knew about Hindus and Hindu Dharma, barring a few great thinkers like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau. Very few understood the philosophy of Hindu Dharma or its place in civilization, especially with the narrative about Hindus and about India being said by people not actively from the culture. There was little factual knowledge about India in American society. So the young sage, only in his late 20s at this point, came to America with a hope to attend the parliament of the world's religions and to raise funds for establishing the order on the name of his divine guru Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He saw how the people in the US viewed Hindus at that time. But while conversing and interacting with Americans, he also appreciated the open-mindedness of the people. He used their social medium, real social media, to educate others about Hindu Dharma. Since then, many Hindu spiritual leaders, professionals, entrepreneurs, academicians, and intellectuals, literally Hindus in America from all walks of life, continued to represent the universal values of Hindu Dharma, helping to increase the acceptance of and respect for Hindus in American society at large. Media has always played an important role in teaching the past, in defining the present, and in shaping the future. In short, the media records and makes history. Our rishis have created very sophisticated technologies and practices for transferring knowledge across generations with great accuracy and fidelity. Vedas and Agamas are just one example. Media played an integral part of our freedom struggle in the 20th century. Most of the great leaders founded news, media, publications and authored books to reach out and to increase awareness in the growing educated class. Social reformers and artists used entertainment to awaken society. During the independence struggle for Bharat, the media continued to play an important role. During the 1857 War of Independence, Payam-e-Azadi was published from Delhi. Amrit Bazar Patrika started as early as 1868. Dadabhai Naroji, Lokmanya Tilak, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, Lala Lajpat Rai, Mahatma Gandhi, K.P. Menon, Kandathil Barvis Mapalai, G. Subramani G. Iyer, and many others founded and used the print media to spread the message of independence and freedom struggle. Ghadar, the newspaper started by Lala Bharat in the US, was an example of active support by Bharatiya diaspora. The stalwarts of the freedom struggle came from all corners of Bharat. Sometimes they faced prison sentences for their writing. but they continued to fight. I would also like to mention two prominent social reformists, Raja Ram Mohan Roy who started Samvad Kamudi in 1918-21 and Gopal Ganesh Agarkar in 1888, who started Sudhara for social reforms. This list barely touches a quarter of the publications that were published all across the Bharat at that time. It's equally hard to forget the contribution of entertainment media in the form of stage acts and later in movies and music to bring society together against the external enemies of the nation. The role of entertainment media was sometimes more important as it reached out in regional languages to masses who couldn't read or write. How can we forget the use of Free India Radio by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose from Berlin to spread message of Azad in Sena? During the same era, Tilak, Savarkar, Gandhi, Lala Lajpat Rai, Lala Hardyal, Rabindranath Tagore, Pandit Nehru, Surendranath Banerjee, Dr. Rajendra Prasad wrote several books and shared their analysis and vision about Bharat and Hindus to inspire masses. Excluding the dark days of emergency between 1975 to 1977, media in post-independence India has always enjoyed the freedom to express its opinion, ideologies and even perceptions. However, by the 1990s, many Hindus began to feel sidelined by the media. By and large, they didn't feel that their faith, their culture or their causes were being fairly portrayed. Then came the World Wide Web and Internet. Communication, the great leveler, the advent of social media has ushered the democratization of media like never before. Now there is hope for truth in reporting of the people, for the people and by the people. Ultimately, in an independent nation with digital technology, the new media will not only survive but flourish provided that the diversity of the population and of thought is respected. Now more than ever, it is incumbent upon the media in all forms to rational and to share opinions based on accurate facts and ethical research. I hope that in the next 2 days of this conference, we keep this duty in mind and actively discuss ideas and opinions to find new, diverse ways to bring society together. Namaste.
That was a wonderful message by Anupam Kherji. But before we start, I would like to start with a quick prayer. And the prayer is Om No Bhadra Kratvo Yandu Vishwadam. Let auspicious ideas come to us from all directions. Thank you. Everybody has cell phones, smartphones, right? You do? I'm not asking you to turn it off. Please use it. Please use it to live stream, live tweet, Facebook, everything. Just use hashtag WHC social media. Okay? It's really a pleasure to be here talking about social media, and I'm sitting among the giants of social media as far as Hindu perspective is concerned. Starting with Sunanda Vashisht. She is the co-founder of Mind.net, and she frequently writes on that portal, but before she joined that, she has been a writer for a long time. She also runs a very popular podcast, Mindmakers Podcast. She's from Houston. We have Shefali, the warrior. She's also a writer, independent writer. She has been writing on several portals in different languages as well. Many people know she's a sari expert too, along with temples. And she writes her travelogues too, right? So, welcome Shefali. We have Vinay Singhal. He's the founder of WittyFeed, a social media company. And he has, through his company, generated so many followers, 3 million, right? Wow, 100 million globally every month. And I'm sure we'll get to hear from him for him more details about it. And then finally, but not the least, Neha ji. Neha ji is a software engineer and also very active on Twitter as well as on Facebook. She also frequently writes on various issues. She's an activist and founder of Shaktitva project. And I feel great to be sitting here among the great Shaktitva warriors here. You'll get to hear more about what Shaktitva is from Neha ji, but this is what Shakti is for us, right? So anyway, I'll get right to it. I had a great opportunity. We hear a lot about JNU, and I had a great opportunity to be at JNU and learn from some of the great rishis who are the modern day professors. One of them is already here. I didn't learn from him, but I know him. Professor Makaran Pranjpe is here. And he has recently been appointed the director of Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla. So congratulations, Makaranji. And I also got to learn from Professor Kapil Kapoor. He's a great Indologist. Those who know him, you know. And it was really a good thing to be in his class. I mean, people say it's hard to survive in JNU if you're not a leftist. Talk about Professor Kapil Kapoor. There are a lot of people all the time taking his classes, and he was very popular. And it's always fun to be in his class. So he used to tell us, see, that we always say, if you protect Dharma, Dharma protects you. But how do we protect Dharma? And he said, we have to protect the Dharma with Shastra or Shastra. दोनों का उपयोग करना है, शास्त्र का भी और शास्त्र का भी, जब धर्म पे संकट आता है. So I'm trying to say is that some of the social media tools that we have, that we use today, is, for me, the way I see it, is both Shastra and Shastra. Shastra mein we try to educate, disseminate information from our perspective. There are a whole bunch of examples that can be given about it. But Shastra is also when we counter people like a very famous quote-unquote professor from Rutgers University. When that professor makes comments about Shri Ram and Shri Sita and Mata Sita, and we counter her. We also counter some fake narratives about Eid ka Chand, Shri Krishna Eid ka Chand dekh rahe, right? So we are using those tools to counter them. So in that context, we have to see our movement forward. So I'll keep it to myself for now. I'll turn to our speakers here. Sunanda ji, you have been writing for a long time, and one of the things that comes up to my mind when I think about you is the powerful speech you gave after Amarnath, वहाँ पे जो मर्डर हुआ अमरनाथ यात्रियों का, and the way it became, your video that you speech, it became viral overnight. And when I watched it, when I got home and I watched it, got to work and I watched it in the morning, I cried, literally cried. And there are many people who will, vouch for that. So can you tell us the story, how you got into it, and also tie it up with your story about the Amarnath?
Namaste. Thank you so much, Avatans, Shri. It's a privilege to be here. I have never attended Kumbh Mela. I have never been to Kumbh. So this is the largest congregation of Hindus that I have ever attended. This is the largest amount of Hindus I have ever been with. Now, from your perspective, that's a wonderful thing. But from where I come from, but the point of view that I carry, it is overwhelming because I grew up in a state in Bharat where Hindus, only state in Bharat where Hindus are in a minority. So for me, since yesterday, I have been walking around with a big bindi, with a sari and with bangles and Mangal Sutra walking around. None of you will imagine how happy that makes me, because I spent my entire childhood not knowingly, not on purpose, but very aware of my Hindu identity, and I'm ashamed to say, even hiding it, because that was the only way to survive. That was the only way to avoid trouble. That was the only way as a girl to stay out of any kind of, stay out of the way of any kind of troublemakers. So to the World Hindu Congress, my eternal gratitude for inviting me here and giving me this wonderful opportunity to be with you all. Thank you. Avatans ji actually set the ball rolling with that little story that he said about Amarnath Yatra. The speech I made. Let me give you a little story about that, and then I will tie it with social media and how I have been involved in it, and my other points that, substantial points that I want to bring forward to you about social media and how I feel it can be used. So, I was traveling, and this invitation to speak, and I was traveling when this news came, which was nothing new to me, but it was a news nevertheless, that pilgrims, Amarnath pilgrims, Shiva devotees had been attacked. And in a bus, they were going in a bus, and they were attacked. Some of them had lost their lives, few had been injured. And there was a Amarnath for the victims in Houston. I live in Houston, and the organizations, the Hindu organizations, got together to do a prarthana sabha, and I was invited to speak there. My colleague Adit is here. He was with me, and he will bear witness to it. When I walked into the room, I thought I will just, what does one say after 25 years of persecution? I thought I will just go and I will say all the appellant my statements, I'm sorry, this happened, and I will just go, because after 25 years one tends to get tired. And then the priest there, he said some mantras for the peace of the people who had lost their lives. And that is when something happened. I have written about Kashmir for the last 20 years, but I have kept personal and my other commentary aside. I have never mixed the two. But something happened that day, and wo Hindi mein kehte hain, baandh toot gaya. I went there and I narrated my entire story. And I won't waste time speaking it here, but you can go to YouTube and you can listen to it after the program today. And I wrote a story about a 10-year-old, how we were persecuted and how my grandfather actually took an axe and said, I will kill you before the intruders come. And that's when I had said I had lost my childhood forever. So I narrated those stories. These were stories that my husband also did not know. My children did not know, because I had not told them. It's such a it had been in the deepest recesses of my heart, and that day it just came out. And here is where social media comes in. There were about 40 to 50 people in that room, as is the bane of forgive me for saying this, of Hindus everywhere. Whenever there is anything, all we can manage is in that 150,000 people in Houston, all we managed that Thursday evening was 40 to 50 people. And I said, okay, I wasn't talking to the audience, it was a cathartic experience. I spoke, and the credit for that goes to Adat, he's here. He recorded it, and he put it on our our website and on YouTube. I came home, I slept. In the morning when I woke up, my phone was broken with the messages that I had. And the amount it had just gone viral from, I had messages from Africa, I had messages from Europe, I had messages from the United States, from India, everywhere. So I thought I was speaking only to 40 people. By morning, there were about 4 million people who had heard that video. So, just this, and there were messages that came to me were, we never knew this happened. These are Hindus who were born and raised in India, who said, really? Did this happen in Kashmir? Did this really happen? Did you really have to go out? Were you really thrown out of your homes? Did this? I mean, I was shocked at the amount of ignorance there is. And I'm not blaming anybody. Maybe a lot of fault is with us also. We have not been able to communicate as much as we should have. And this is where social media ties in. And I will give you a few examples of how I use social media and how I have been empowered by it. First of all, when we say social media, what are we talking about? Social media versus mainstream media. These two nomenclatures, after this, I want you to throw it out of your lives. Mainstream media is not mainstream media because it does not carry any mainstream opinion. So, please do not call it mainstream media after you leave from here. I call it big media, corrupt media, Lutyens media, Delhi-based media, but it's not mainstream media. This is mainstream media right here, and you are mainstream media right there. So that is one thing I want you to really follow in your life. So this is a, old boys club. So one person talks about nuclear disarmament, same person goes on another channel and talks about environmental disasters, and third time he goes, in third hour he goes and he talks about some women empowerment. So they know zilch about all three. So let's get that out. Social media is a democratic media. So dictatorial media versus democratic media. That is the nomenclature that we should use. Nomenclatures are very important. If there's one thing that you should remember when you get out of the room, it's nomenclatures. Let's use the right nomenclature for the right thing. Let's not use the words that we have been told. So that's one thing I wanted to preface it with. Then I want to give you another example how because I have been involved with this since 2008, 2009. I will give you an exact moment when social media came of age in Bharat. And as a good media personality, I love a scandal. So social media also started with a bang, with a scandal. And I'll give you this example. I don't know how many of you remember that or how many of you have been were part of social media at that time. Forgive me for taking names, but looking at the faces here, if anyone thought we would take names or if we would be reverent towards anybody, you are mistaken, you are in the wrong room. So at that time, Congress spokesperson Abhishek Manu Singhal, most of you must have seen him on the TV, he got into a scandal. My microphone is not okay. He got into a scandal. You can Google and find out. Our voices are getting, this is intolerance. Right? Is no one from the so-called Make sure this is, Shri, make sure I can stand.
Yeah.
Are you the timekeeper? Yes. Yeah, please give me a I'm not going to start.
She lost the time.
Hello.
There we go. Thank you. Conspiracy no more. So he got Google this. So Abhishek Manu Singh, we got into some trouble. And why it was interesting to us, no one cares what he does in his bedroom, but why it was interesting to us was because he had promised somebody some promotion out of turn for a sexual favor or something. As a true media person, we all love, we love conspiracies. I mean, not conspiracy, but a scandal. So we love gossip also. So this tape, this is in 2012 framework. This tape emerged somewhere, and it was stifled by the Lutyens media. And it was not, it went to all media houses, but no one paid it. Of course, there was UBA government in power. It emerged on social media. And suddenly, within hours, everybody had seen that tape. This was the first bona fide social media moment. It was a story that was, the story that broke on social media, that was sustained on social media for a long time. Of course, he was thrown out of his spokespersonship or whatever, and then he was back in 6 months. That's how it happens in India. But that's not where we go. But what I am saying, that was the first time something of that thing had happened, and everybody was talking about it. And that time I wrote a piece called "News in the Time of Social Media." And so I'll continue. News in the time of social media. What that meant, and the two things that and I'm talking about 2012. Two things that came out of, I concluded in that piece were that after today, media censorship is a joke. Media will never be able to censor anything now that social media is, no one, governments or anybody will not be able to censor anything now that social media is here. That was one conclusion I had drawn in 2012. Another conclusion I drew in 2012 was, at that time, that there is not going to be my way or highway here now. Every single person who has an internet connection will have an opinion, and every single person will voice that opinion. I had a lot of people, so if you know now editor of print and at that editor of Indian Express, Shekhar Gupta, he used to get into a lot of frenzy, and the way he used to, because he was part of the Old Boys Club, so he would always say that not everyone who has an opinion is an opinion, it's a point of view. So an opinion cannot be a point of view. A point of view cannot be an opinion. When he said opinion, he wanted to say opinion page in the newspaper. And that is something. And then after that, 3 or 4 years after that, Mr. Gupta often wrote to me and said, could we please have your opinion for my website? No prizes for guessing if I agreed or declined. But this is where we have gone from dismissing us as point of view, from dismissing us as chaotic, from dismissing us as someone who, people who have no knowledge of what they're talking, only we do, to invite us to write for their portals, which is, for us, it's not anything, I don't consider a privilege or anything, but I'm saying this is how the trajectory happened. And I'll give you quickly, I know I don't have time, I'll give you quickly 3 examples. One of where social media has done extremely well. Another, and you can keep adding examples, as you go. Another example where social media has done middlingly well, and one example where we have completely failed, despite all the stuff over here. So one example where we have been very successful is India Pride project that is run by a good friend of ours, Anurag Saxena and his other friends. And this is, you must have seen the tag, Bring Our Idols Home. This is about raising awareness about the lost heritage or the stolen heritage, the murtis that get stolen from Bharat, from the temples, and they land somewhere in museums in New York and London and everywhere, then they get sold or whatever. So no one had this awareness. As Hindus, even I have to admit, I did not understand how big of a problem this was. So this group, India Pride Project, they actually did an entire research where they found that this money is also funding terror. That is when we sort of arose, but that is how they use social media very effectively to create awareness about it. So if you follow Bring Our Gods Back Home, you will see that a lot of murtis have come back and everything. So that's a very successful example, and that makes me very happy. Second example is our own Kashmiri Hindus, the example of Kashmiri Hindus. The way before social media was invented, or before social media came, or even before internet came, the story of Kashmiri Hindus was told like, 20 people were taken to hospital because of food contamination. And then 700,000 Hindus were driven out of their homes. That was the same tone and tenor used. Nothing was different. It was just like 20 people had been hospitalized for food contamination. So when internet came, even before social media, when internet came, there were a bunch of people, I'll just take one more minute, there were a bunch of people who, chronicled this entire story about who we were, where we came from, what had happened to us, and it's only through the pages of internet and through social media our story is alive today. And I'm telling you, I have one such activist, Lalit Kaul, sitting right here, who painstakingly wrote the names of every single martyr of Hindus who had fallen to bullets. Every single martyr. Not one chore media or audience media did that. He did that even before social media. You can check it. And when social media came, so we got our film and we started talking about it, but we are still nowhere near any kind of, it's a whole story, we'll need another panel discussion for that. But I'm saying we've had middling success in just making our stories known. And I'm just, last point, where we have completely failed, and I'll give you an example of we have not been able to set the narrative, is cow slaughter issue. Cow slaughter issue is about legality and illegality. That is the framework that this debate should be framed in. The way it is being, because cow slaughter is banned in 24 states, has been banned by Congress government since 1947, even before that. So if anything that happens which is not legal, the debate is completely about legal and illegality. It is not a tolerance versus intolerance debate. At that point, we have to ask, people who are talking about have to ask that is the society ready for cow slaughter? India is a representative democracy. If people are really, if they agree that cow slaughter should happen, then people who are screaming intolerance should go to their representatives and lawmakers should take a stand before all of you and before all their constituents and say, listen, we are going to bring a law which will allow cow slaughter. Why do lawmakers not take that stand? You know why? Because there is no public opinion for it. So the only thing that happens is in TV studios they sit here and they talk about tolerance, non-tolerance, which is garbage. The real issue is legality and illegality. But here we have not been able to form the narrative. So this is something I take blame for as well, that anytime you see anything about Gohatya, the debate should only be framed till the law is there. Till the lawmakers in parliament go and change it. Till the law is here, it should completely be about legality and illegality about this. And I will take more questions. I have to say more, but when question answers happen, I will say more. But thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will have a question answer session. But moving on, Sushil ji, taking a cue from Sunanda ji, next, All Hindu Conference में social media नहीं होना चाहिए, नया nomenclature होना चाहिए. Anyway, and another thing that Sunandaji talked about is the Anurag Kashyap's, Anurag Saxena's Pride, yes, Pride, India Pride's project. You can Google him, you can listen to his speech, it's a wonderful speech. And another aspect of that is still, in US, we have several murtis that are sitting in consulate, waiting to be transported back to India. So they have given it to us, but they haven't made it back. So please keep that in mind. Moving on now to Shefali ji. I'm just going from left to right. So Shefali ji, you know, you have been writing for a long time, and you have been educating people also about sari, as I said, and mandirs. And one of the things that I remember about your speech when you made about the Goa Inquisition. I don't know how many people know about it, but that is one story that Shefali ji, through her social media, had brought in the fore, and now we all know, right? So I will ask you to talk about a little bit about that journey, but also please talk about some saris in temple too.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a great opportunity. I was listening to Sunanda and I was thinking to myself when she talked about her speech after the Amarnath incident and the reactions to it, and so many people coming up to her and saying that we didn't know that this happened, I'm so sorry, I should have known it. And I realized that it's the exact same thing that happened to me after I spoke about Goa Inquisition and what my ancestors suffered. And in a way, her story is my story too, only it happened in the 16th century. But the exact same thing that happened to her 30 years ago or 20 years ago was what happened to my family in 16th century. They were also told exactly as Sunanda's family and the Kashmiri Hindus were told to leave, convert or get killed. That was the choice my ancestors were given too in the 16th century in Goa. Every Hindu of Goa was given that choice. Some of them converted. Hello? Some of them converted for various reasons, but many of them, a majority of them, they actually chose to leave their land, leave their property, leave everything and just move to another place with just the clothes on their back. And in my house, there is a little bit of mitti of my original village in the mandir at home, which has been lying there for so many years, because that was the only connection that whoever made that move to my current village had with this ancestral village. That and of course the affiliation to the family deity. Be as that may be, the reactions to my talk after it went viral, and that is the power of social media. I got, if I had $1 each time somebody from this gathering told me that I saw your Goa Inquisition talk, I didn't know anything about it. If I had $1 each time, I would be able to afford a business class flight back home. But the reactions that I got from Goa were the ones that made it very interesting. That talk went viral in Goa and there were very virulent reactions from both sides, from the Hindu side as well as the Christian side. So many of the Christians who took umbrage to my talk, their question was, why are you spreading hate? I was like, excuse me, I'm talking about what happened. Every single thing that I've spoken about is a fact. And I can give you references, and I have given my references. And what do you mean by spreading hate? Do you mean to say that when they destroyed my temples, the Jesuits destroyed 300 temples in a year in one district in Goa in 1580 something. So when they did it, that was not spreading hate. When they actually told people to get converted or get killed, that was not spreading hate. But I am talking about it, giving references, that is spreading hate. How is this narrative even done? This is where social media comes into the picture, because when I gave this talk at Srijan Foundation, again the room was full of 40 people. But once the talk was out there in social media, close to some 10 lakh people in India have seen the talk. And I have received so many letters and some genuine queries from Goan Christians wanting to know about their history, and that has counted as my success. I'll tell you a little about my journey about social media. Actually, I had taken a long break from writing. I used to write on lifestyle issues. I used to write on textiles, travel before that. I was always opinionated, as you can imagine. But before my kids were, I had triplets, my kids were very young then, so I had taken a break. And that time I used to only write about, my political opinions only on my social media page, but mostly I used it like a new parent does to tell the world about how great my children were. I'm sure all of us have done it. But suddenly, I think it was in 2011 or 2012, I'm not sure, when Rahul Gandhi was first made the Vice President of the Congress, that's when I got really bugged and I had to vent it out. So I wrote a post on my Facebook which was open only to my family and friends. But somebody shared it, and then overnight it became viral. And that's when I suddenly realized that here is a platform where I can speak about things that really matter to me, and it reaches a wide audience without any gatekeeping, without any editorial control, and I don't have to depend upon an editor, I don't have to depend upon any platform. Whatever I say directly reaches people, and which is what the so-called mainstream media was supposed to do. Their job was to give voice to the dispossessed. Their job was to talk about the inequalities, about the injustices, give opinion to people who didn't have an opinion. But the big media didn't do it. So it was left to social media and individuals like me or Sunandaji or Neha to talk about whatever really mattered to them. And that is how the whole journey began. And if you want to know the success of social media, you should see how the big media has transitions from describing me. When I started off writing, I was just a housewife turned troll. Then gradually I became a right-wing troll. Then I became a right-wing columnist. Now I am an independent writer and blogger. This is not me speaking, this is the big media adjectives that they use for me when they introduce me. And that is the power of social media, because in 4 years, I see that I have moved from this position to, I am where I am. But mainstream media, the alleged mainstream media thinks that I have moved from housewife turned troll to independent writer and blogger. And it is not just me as an individual. You look through New York Times articles, just search Hinduism and search New York Times. You will see the entire history of articles that they have written. They have moved from calling Hindus to Hindu extremists, to Hindu fundamentalists, to Hindu nationalists now. The rest of the content has remained the same. The pejorative insinuations, the abuse, the kind of topics that they choose to write about have remained the same. But the adjectives have changed from Hindu extremist to Hindu fundamentalist to Hindu nationalist. And why has that change come across? That is led by social media. Social media catches lies. Social media gives you facts. Social media is so quick that if big media makes an error, within 2 minutes, literally within 2 minutes, somebody will find the true facts and somebody will put it out on Twitter. Sunandaji spoke about that unfortunate tape of Abhishek Manu Singh. I wish he had it, because when I saw that tape for 2 days, I was off my food, quite honestly. So I wish she didn't really, talk about it and bring back those sad memories, but never mind.
I was chronicling the history of social media.
But that is the thing, and if you look at it, mainstream media has killed so many stories. The alleged Lutyens media has killed so many stories just because the narrative was not convenient for them. Yesterday, Dalip Singh Ji, who is the spiritual leader of Namdhari Sikhs, spoke here in the plenary session. Did you know, we all know about Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Do you know about the Malerkotla massacre? Do you know that 70 Namdhari Sikhs were blown away by making them put their heads into a cannon by the British? And do you know why that happened? Because they opposed cow slaughter. Sikhs opposed cow slaughter in Malerkotla, and they went and fought against the Muslim butchers who basically killed cows just to offend the Hindus and the Sikhs. But nobody is going to tell you that story. It's only social media can. It's only handles like True Philology who can tell you about these facets of history. But what social media will tell you is they will tell you about one small incident about Go Rakshaks lynching somebody day in and day out, that's all they tell you. They wait for some person to make an inflammatory statement, and of course there are fringe elements on every side. But they do not give voice to rational Hindu voices. They always amplify voices. Some person will say something inflammatory in some village, and basically these are all propped up handles, and suddenly that quote becomes big news in big media. There are talking heads in TV studios talking about it, and suddenly it becomes an issue. But what about real issues happening in India all the time? New York Times or other big media, international media, will tell you about Gorakshaks lynching ad nauseam, will go on and on and on about it. But Madhu Pandit Das runs the biggest midday meal program in the world. 1.7 million children are getting fed through Akshay Patra Foundation. Where is that story? It's a beautiful human interest story. It's a humanitarian story. It's not a Hindu story. It's a global humanitarian story. But where is the narrative? Where do you see it in mainstream media? But one killing somewhere in some small village somewhere in India, and then suddenly it becomes big news internationally. And I'm going to talk here about, I don't know how many of you are aware of the Elphinstone Road tragedy where the railway bridge collapsed. And there were ordinary people there trying to save the women who were stuck on the bridge. And there was one guy who was trying to grab a woman and pull her out. And his video got circulated, and the Hindu, I think it was, they did a story, a full story, and they called that man a molester, and they said, dying woman gets molested in India. And that story was caught by the international media within like half an hour. In 2 days it was there in the Independent, it was in almost all the big international newspapers. And there was no truth to it. That is the sad part of it. But that man, imagine if you were that man. Imagine if all you were doing were trying to save a dying woman, and at that point of time you're not looking where you're touching, you're in panic, and your only priority is to save that person. So the video was an 8-second video. On an 8-second video, somebody played the judge, jury, and the executioner and termed this man a molester of a dying woman. Can you imagine anything worse than this? And this story was flashed all over the place. But social media, within 1 or 2 hours, they actually came up with longer videos taken from other angles, where it was clearly obvious that the man was trying to save the woman and not trying to molest her. And afterwards, of course, the Hindu issued an apology after 3 days on page 3, but by the time the damage was done, internationally the story had reached. And what opinion do people have? Already they are eager to call it the rape capital of the world. You know, these talks are very cheap. Conspiracy again, my voice is back.
I'll take this opportunity to make a quick point here. I got a note that saying, ask speakers to come up to the podium and speak. We talked about it, this format amongst ourselves, and we decided that this format, we even didn't want to have this format because we don't want to talk from a higher pedestal. We're not going to, we don't have to apologize and decline that we're going to stay in this format.
This is like the microphone relay. But what I'm trying to say is that social media catches lies and it's really quick on it, and which is why the big media is really scared of social media voices, and that is why they want social media to be curbed, and that is why they want to call us trolls. Talking about trolls, they don't want to amplify our voices, that is
Hello?
Hello? Yeah. Okay, now where was I? Just give me 2 minutes. So talking about trolls, there is always this whiny narrative of women on the other side, mostly it's women, about how alleged right-wing trolls threaten them or make life miserable for them. I can assure you that every one of us on this side of the table have been trolled equally badly. I have had to complain to the cops twice. Once when my family was threatened. I cannot tell you how bad it was to read a threat to my daughter from somebody who's obviously a fake name. And I had to go to the cops and they found out who did it, but that's besides the point. But I am not the one who's going to cry victim. I am not one to say that, oh, we are getting trolled as well. But what really upset me once was when Nepotism and Dynasty TV was going on this... right-wing trolls, how they bully women on the other side, and they had done a lot of narratives, some true, some fictitious, some imaginary. So I wrote to them that this is what happened to me. Do you have the guts to carry my story? So Sonia Singh, who heads Nepotism and Dynasty TV, she actually, as a favor to me, in a very condescending tone, she did a story. But do you know what she did? She did not even have the courtesy to get my last name right. See, Shefali Yadav, right-wing troll, got trolled too, was the story. And I was like, do you think I'm so, I'm so unimportant that you don't even take care, you don't even do editorial diligence to get my name correct? And when I wrote to her, and I said, you know what, I don't really need it, my reach is fine, and I say it with, take me on my word for it, my reach today is multiple times that of Nepotism and Dynasty TV. I don't need them, they need me. They actually called me to come on their show. I told them I'm not interested in talking to Nepotism and Dynasty TV. That's besides the point again. So she wrote to me saying that, oh, but we did a story for you, you should be happy, like she's doing me a favor. This is the attitude that the big media brings to the table always. And this is, and on one side they're saying that you guys don't get trolled at all, we are the only ones who get trolled, and on the other side they're saying that your freedom of expression should be curtailed. Makarand Deshpande should know how much the big media, the editors of the big media harangued him when he was trying to curate the Pondicherry Literature Festival. Who does that? Sorry, Makarand Panachki. Who does that? The people who talk about freedom of expression in the morning, evening and night, they are the same people who basically demonize a literature festival and say, they essentially said that it shouldn't be held at all. I saw a tweet by an editor, I forgot who it was. He said that, have you noticed that people on the right side, there is a disproportionate number of scientists, doctors, engineers, CAs. I mean, seriously, what's your problem? Does it really hurt that highly educated, successful people are voicing their opinions now? Are opinions an exclusive monopoly of journalists? So a journalist can write about anything from sports to science to economy, the same journalist. Mr. Shekhar Gupta has an opinion on everything from the caste of Italy to the number of sports medals that India has to win. But we cannot have an expertise in our own field and have opinions. This kind of monopoly is what the social media has destroyed, and the big media knows it. But now what is happening is, in 2014, the narrative was overwhelmingly on the side of social media, But now the other side has realized the importance of social media, and they are also investing big time on making their presence felt on social media. That is a problem I think we all need to talk about, and we all need to find some ways to counter. Thank you.
She talks about the mainstream media, and especially when we talk about mainstream media, we think of English language media. I looked at the Bharat data. Bharat is an organization that keeps the viewership of all the news channels. If you look at the data, the top 5 news channels in English. Okay. So if you combine all top 5 news channels in English, and I'm from Bihar originally, and then combine the top Bhojpuri channel, they don't even come together. Okay, just one Bhojpuri channel, they don't even come together. So that's, but they have power. But moving on, that's a good segue here. Sitting to my right is Vinay Singhal ji. He comes from a different perspective to social media. We have been, if you're talking in terms of economics, we are consumers. He's the producer. Through his company, he has reached out to so many people. I will actually let him talk about his journey.
Thank you. Namaste. The best thing that I love about this conference, and I'm very new to this type of conferences, is that everyone here, when they greet each other, and I've been talking to a lot of people who were coordinating for this talk for last 2-3 months, and then last 2 days here and meeting probably at least 100 people in last 2 days. Everybody greets you with a namaste, and they take your name with a G, right? I need to appreciate the World Hindu Congress for doing that as a norm across. So round of applause for all of them. Yes. That's culture in the most native format. Why I was able to notice it, because I run a company which is a content media company, and the way we make money is we work with brands to integrate them into content and do the native content marketing. The idea is... Hello. Hello. Coming back, so coming back, see, and we do content marketing for brands in the native format. I don't think there is a better way to basically natively talk about our values, Hindu values, and how everybody, elder or younger, richer or poorer, bigger or smaller, everybody. I'm probably one of the younger ones in the room itself, and probably in the conference itself. I'm only 27, if you're not able to guess my age. Everybody greets me with a G. That gives me such a different essence of what Hindu culture and what overall Indian culture is all about. So thank you so much for integrating the Hindu culture in such a native way. As Avatans ji also introduced me, I come from a very different background from the 3 ladies we have on the dais. I run a media company. I started it 8 years ago. When I was still in my college, I was doing engineering there. And I just wanted to do something good with my life, good with my college days. I just started an IT company. That's what we Indians are best at. At least people here in US would know that, right? So I started its usual website software making company in 2012. That was 2010. 2012, we started a Facebook page. It was called Amazing Things in the World, and it's very important that you know it, because the message behind the page was very simple. The world has so much good to tell, but it is so focused on telling the bad part of it. Today I realize that is what exactly Sunanda ji and Shefali was telling us, that It's actually the media. That there is so much good to tell, but they're so focused on telling the bad part of it that we don't get to hear the good ones, which is what led to me starting this Facebook page called Amazing Things in the World. And the idea was very simple: take all the positive stories, let's share them with the world, let's see if we can inspire people. Global came very naturally to us. I'm not a media student, I don't know content by education, by theory, so it came very naturally to me. I did not know at that point in time that we were starting a media company. Fast forward to 2014, which is when the paint brand that we have, which is WittyFeed, we started that. And I went to a lot of people, I met a lot of people. By the time we started to know a lot of people, industry, investors, and all kinds of people. And I went to them and I said, I have built a community of global citizens who are from US, from UK, Canada, Australia, from India, everywhere. And they are there to celebrate some positive content. I want to build a company, I want to build a global media company from India. And you know what, every single one of them, I don't remember a single person telling me, and that should tell us something again about the media and the narrative in the media and the kind of confidence we carry in India about ourselves. Every single industry person, every single investor, every single of my friend, mentors, advisor told me that first of all, India cannot produce global companies, and second, they told me even if it was possible you're doing media, India just do not know how to do global media. I'm so proud to tell you today that out of 100 million users over a month that we have on our platform, 60 million of them are not from India. And these are not Indians that I'm talking about. Every third American was on our content, in 2016 and 2017 both. So the kind of power that we hold with that, the kind of influence that we can bring with that, is just enormous. So this whole industry, they give a different nomenclature to the mainstream media, or the Lutyens, or the dictatorial media, or whatever it is. I'll tell you what, we have a separation history of 800 years, right? And whatever we are today, we are almost a product of that. And it's such an unfortunate situation to be in that we have lost a lot of that confidence, we have undermined ourselves so much that we have forgotten that we are way much older than those 800 years that we have been suppressed for. Which is why the fact that we have survived after 800 years of suppression is the fact that tells you that how old and how strong we are. That brings me to my probably starting point of what I wanted to. My topic that I was given was changing the narrative of Hinduism in the Hindu Dharma in the today's media. The term Hinduism, the first ever time the word Hindu was used was in 1823 by a British lord called Lord Macaulay. He brought in some philosophers and he brought in some intellectuals, so-called intellectuals from UK and brought them to India, and he built a committee where the idea that he gave in the statement that he made to them that we do not want to win over India or rule them just by government or rule them. We also need to enslave them intellectually. And so we need to create a class of intellectuals. We need to create a class of intellectuals / interpreters who will basically be enslaved and will be British in their every thought, but Indian in their looks. And which will be able to basically then help us enslave a larger society in the country. The word became, the Hindu word and Hinduism became even more popular in the 19th century, and that's the whole history of it. The real word for our dharma, our religion, is the word Sanatan Dharma, right? That's how we all know it. And do you know the actual meaning of the word Sanatan? The word is eternal law, the eternal law, the laws of living life even before the human history. That's what it exactly means. I'll tell you what, this is not even a religion. This is basically nothing but a simple collection of some rules, some rituals, and some traditions put together to have a happy and prosperous life. Can you ever explain any religion more simpler than this? That's the beauty of Sanatana Dharma and Hindu Dharma for you, ladies and gentlemen. So, let me, because I come from the younger generation, and I come from a company which I built on the basis of technology. I built a content company. And a lot of people that I was talking to were asking me a simple question that, how do I explain religion? How do I explain Hinduism and why it is so important? This dharma is so important to my kids. I follow it, but how do I take my kids to temples? Let me explain in their language. In technology, and because all of your IT people, a lot of your IT people, you'll understand that much better. There is something called platform, and there is something called product, right? When you build a platform, a lot of products are built on the top of the platform. For an example, internet. Internet is a platform. Internet is a platform that made the whole media democratic, the whole world more democratic. It brought in everybody's view out there. It was a platform, and the products of internet were platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Google, and all the companies that we know, all the things that people who are still sitting in front of you on the dais are products of internet, which we built on the top of the platform. Hindu Dharma is exactly like that. Hindu Dharma is the platform. It is not the product, it is the platform. There are a lot of products that you can build on the top of that. Another analogy that I will make is Hindu Dharma is the open source religion of the world. It is the open source religion of the world. Why? Because when you have something open source, anybody can take it, anybody can build their own narrative of it, anybody can make some changes into it, and it will still excel. And anybody can rebrand it in their own name and sell it, and it's still okay. I'll tell you what, there are so many of them that we have that have been built on the open source platform of Hindu Dharma. For example, just give me 1 more minute and I'll finish. For example, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, these are direct products which are built out of the open source platform of Hinduism, and so proudly so, right? Islamism, Christianity, they have taken so much from the open source platform of Hinduism and built on the top of that. So, we are the open source platform. I don't think we have to be fearful or worried about any of that. We just have to make sure that we know that and we are able to tell that to the next generation as well. I have a lot of other points that I've built, but just one story that I want to share with you, which is that today, the narrative is controlled by the mainstream, so-called mainstream media, is because the ownership in media, 85% of it across the world is Christians, Jews, and Parsis, and in India, the leftists. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but for sure, there is no way those who do not understand Hinduism as an ideology, as a basic instinct, will ever be able to portray it in the right way. Just one story, and I'll end my talk with it, is that we today own 6 different brands. As I said, WittyFeed is our Indian brand, the Popple is an American brand, and we have six of them. Very recently, the sad incident of demise of Atal Bihari happened, and by default we were covering it. So WittyFeed, the brand that talks to Indian audience, was covering it. There are 2 others, so there's a Hindi platform, Dunia Does It was covering it, and 3 of the brands are covering it. The Popple team, we have a separate team, of course, to the right side. The Popple team was, I went to them and said, what are you guys doing? What are you doing on Bihari his demise, Atalji's demise? And they were like, no, this is not our story. Why would we do it? It's an Indian thing. WittyFeed is doing it. I said, okay. So I asked them a question. I said, tell me something. If the unfortunate incident of, let's say, Mr. Obama's demise was to happen today, do you think WittyFeed will cover it? They said, yes, he should. Dunia Digest will cover it, the Hindi platform, yeah, they would. I said, why don't you think the Atalji's demise is a story for you? Because, I'll tell you why, because you are grown up in an environment where what they are is so global and what we are is not. And it's so important that the ownership of Hindus and people who understand Hindu ideology basically own media, so that we can actually translate that into our teams and tell them that Atal Bihariji's demise is an international event because he is a politician of that stature, and so the story on the popple has to happen because the American friends need to know about it, and they will know it only when we do the story, and that is the way we can control the narrative. So, Anusha, please thank you.
Thank you, Vinay. Again, the talk about all the negativity on the mainstream media and all reminds me again my guru Professor Kapil Kapoor ji. He used to say, "ये सब रुदाली है, रुदाली है, इनका और कुछ काम नहीं है." So again, so let's move on from being from the rudalis to Neha ji here. Neha ji also brings a different perspective to social media. She's a software engineer, and she got into social media with her activism, and she has been part of many other activism, online activism that she will tell you about. So I will hand the microphone to you.
Thank you so much, Avatans ji, and thank you all for allowing me to be here. And this is like interesting, even as you just mentioned that the nomenclature about G. So this is one thing that even in Indic book club that I'm part of, we initially all started with like first names. And I come from Lucknow, and a small middle class family in UP, and I cannot fathom the idea of taking the name of somebody elder to me, somebody senior to me, and somebody respected to me without the word G. So I say, and he tells me all the time, just call me Avatans. I was like, no, I know I'm in the US, and that is the norm here, but I just can't. So I'm going to say G, and everybody else can call me with my name because I'm obviously younger and not at the level that you all are. So that's thank you for noticing that. And so I guess the question about how, and I'm asked that several times, of how did I transition from being an engineer into the software engineering degree, doing my thing, putting away, to being an activist online. And literally, I have 2 business cards right now. In fact, 3. So the reason is, and I'll just kind of go back in time, and like pretty much any middle class child in growing up in India, I was one of the products of tiger parenting that they call here in the US. And for people who don't know that, tiger parenting is a term used for Asian parents because America thinks that we push our kids too hard on excelling in grades and competing in spelling bees, and then they're like, what is happening? These guys are just taking up all the places and like they're winning all the competitions and we don't get it. And then there's also a lot of negative narrative around tiger parenting, because people think that this is kind of oppressive to the child because you're not letting him, blossom in the way the child should be blossoming, etc. But what people don't realize is tiger parenting, or the reason we have this kind of parenting is because this is a manifestation of middle class aspirations. We don't come from families who have access, from families who have money, where we can, take luxury of blossoming in our own way. And so our parents worked extremely hard to bring us to where we are, and they're worried that this person needs to first learn how to sustain themselves. And if they don't learn how to sustain themselves, then I will not be able to complete my duty. So the first thing, and we also heard a little bit of complaints that Indians push their children to be doctors and engineers and all these STEM fields. Well, STEM pays, right? STEM meaning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Those professions pay. And the first thing you have to figure out is where your next bread is coming from. So, and only after that would you have the ability and the financial independence to put forward your points. And only after that was I able to put forward my points. So, as a product of, tiger parenting and growing up in India, that was my entire life story pretty much. like I mentioned this to many people who know me, but my mother is like, hard taskmaster. You can't see a smile on her face. And I'm talking about, I'm in school, for example, and this one incident happened, I think it was in grade 6th grade or something, and I got 95 on 100 in mathematics, right? And this was a good achievement for me because I was working hard for it, and the person who came, the next highest score was 86. So in my class, my teacher is applauding me, look at she, look at her, this is amazing. And everybody in the class is asking, how do you do it? Can you take classes? Can you teach me and stuff? And I'm very happy and entitled, and I go to my mother and I show her my report card, hoping that she'll notice. And I'm starting there with anticipation, and she goes, where are the other 5? And this is for real. She's like, where are the other 5 marks? And I'm like, are you serious? Like, the other person got 86, and she's like, well, she's not my daughter. You're my daughter. So where are the other 5? So I go back and I work harder, and I ended up in engineering school in Noida. Then from there, I went to Columbia University to get my master's in computer science. And then I got a decent enough job. And so now, so this has been my life story. Like, I go to my mom and she's not pleased, so then I figure out a way to please her, and so on and so forth. So once I got my job and I went back to India and I talked to her and I told her, like, this is what I get and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so what's your reaction? And she's like, I'm very happy and proud of you. And that was like, what? And that was a moment I seriously still go back to, and I have freaking no idea what to do next. Because the reason what I've been working for, the targets that I used to be given, was the target that defined my life goals. And so suddenly there is no life goal, because according to her, I've achieved whatever she wanted me to achieve. So in this era of extreme confusion and desperation, I randomly, completely differently ended up on social media. And I started looking at, and at that time, like from my political point of view, half my family is RSS and BHP, and the other half of my family is whole Congress. They still are. I know. They still are. You can't convince them. It's that level. So I used to wake up in the morning in a Mahasangram, and that would be our alarm because the newspaper had arrived. So either my dad would pick up something and start fighting with my mom, or the other way around. And so this was alarm. And all 3 of us, I have 2 other siblings, and this was like because we were growing up in this Mahasangram, we were apolitical for the longest time. We were like, we can't, take sides here, not our thing. So I ended up in college with that political background, and then in 2012, Nirbhaya happened. And that was an incident that just shook me. Because I was in Delhi for 4 years. I used to take pretty much the same commute. And some of my friends used to come with me. And I just couldn't shake off the feeling that 2 years ago, this could have been me. So I took to social media and I started talking about it, or like the regular, signing petitions, sharing on Facebook, not Twitter at that time. And then slightly afterwards, the conversation went on for a very prolonged period of time because there was laws and there were debates happening on all fronts. So I ended up in social media, right? And in Twitter. And mostly I identified myself with the liberal left side of the spectrum at that point, because that is like the cool thing to do. So I'm now over there. I'm kind of contributing to the feminist narrative and contributing to the regular thing like this is injustice, we must fight, and etc. And only when I started digging more into this was when the revolution happened. And so then, as I started getting more into the concept of what prevails in social media these days, we started talking about especially the articles that were coming out in the mainstream magazines, or as we said, regional magazines. What I was reading was completely antithetical to everything that I was born into. And now a little bit of background again here, because my father and pretty much my entire family and extended family are big time Shaktitva worshippers. So Devi is our Ishta Devata. And the moment I was born, I was told that my entire family fasted for Chaitra Navratri. And so they thought I was a blessing of the goddess. So they had taken a vow that they were going to do a Jagaran, the Devi Jagaran, for the next 5 years of my life, every Navratri. And so 5-year-old me is now part of this Jagaran, and every morning, and for people who are familiar with how Jagarans are done in Uttar Pradesh, we have like a giant dais, we have orchestra, we have mics, and we make a gala affair of it. So in the middle of that, morning and evening, there is an aarti, and the rest of the time there is Durga Saptashati chanting. So in the aarti, they will dress me up like 3-year-old me in lehenga and put me on the stage, and I am the Devi suddenly. And then 80-year-old men, 85-year-old women, they are coming and taking my blessings. Okay? And the 3-year-old me is doing that, and I have no idea what that is, but I'm doing that. And so the initial formative part of my life was this. And then when I became 7 years old, I started doing Navratri fasting, which is continued till date. So growing up in this tradition, what I was reading on the internet about my faith, about feminism, was just not getting connected. I just could not understand what your problem was. So what they have basically done is that they have done a very lazy analysis, and I wouldn't say even they've done any analysis. What they've basically done is the early suffragists in the America, the white suffragists in America, had done a fantastic job of figuring out where their society's problems were coming from. But what we did in India was that we copy-pasted this into the Indian context and called it a day. And the reason was because in the early suffragists figured out that the reason this was happening was because all of this had biblical sanction. So there is a fantastic book called The Woman, Church and State by Matilda Joslyn Gage. You should read it. She goes through the entire history of Christianity to figure out whatever is the perception of women in her society in 1920s was directly coming from the church and the changes the church had brought. So our fantastic feminists in India, they said clearly, because in their case that's the majority, so it's coming from the church, so in our case it must be coming from the temples. So now you have a problem of this copy-paste narrative and lazy analysis, which is taking out all over the internet, and that is what cool kids, apolitical kids like me end up consuming. However, in my case, this just did not tie up, and I am an engineer, so if things don't logically tie up, I go after it. So I went after it. And now I'm reading all of these, and then at the same time I had already entered Twitter by that time, and now initially self-avowed feminists are writing articles in Outlook magazine calling women who support the BJP as hate hacks. Right? And as I said, we're going to take names here. So Priyanka Chaturvedi, the very Hindu, very liberal Congress spokesperson who's always fighting for women's rights on Twitter, is the person who retweets this and says, I agree with this tag. Just parse that for a second. What kind of a feminist are you if you agree to a tag of hate hags to women who have agency, women who are voicing their opinions on the internet, getting trolled for it day by day by calling them hate hags? And that was not the end of it. Outlook magazine then wrote a hideous piece targeting Madhu Kishwar and Tavleen Singh with words that I can't even use and insinuations that I can't even fathom, just because their political opinion was different from their political opinion. Then you have Amresh Mishra, right? He is no longer active here, but I need to take that name. Amresh Mishra was a big shot in UP politics at the time. He was the up-and-coming youth leader. If you saw his deal, and I'm sure internet has screenshots for the rest of eternity, so you should go see his. You can't read beyond one tweet. It is that disgusting. And and Shashi Tharoor follows that guy, used to follow that guy. Even today he's making a comeback, by the way. Then he was arrested. That's a different story. So then Tehseen Poonawalla, very big self-avowed feminist, is taking to Twitter and abusing Smriti Irani in ways that he can't even talk to his mom about. Can you share that tweet? And this is like an open challenge. Can you read out that tweet to your mom with a straight face? And if you can, I'm sorry sir, you're not a feminist, you're a misogynist. So with all of that going on, now I'm suddenly reading that the burning feminist issues of the entire, of entire Indian society is my Mangal Sutra, is my Sindoor, and even sari is oppressive according to the New York Times. Chachi please. Just stay away from my clothes and my jewelry. I love my jewelry, I love my saris, and I'm going to stick to it. And all of this is happening is because we have left that space. We have left that space open. We don't call ourselves feminists. We don't talk about our own real issues that affect us. We don't want to look at this from the Hindu perspective. We don't want to do the hard research, or we don't have the time to do the hard research because we thought we can outsource this, and that is why this narrative is spreading. So from there, I ended up conceptualizing this concept of Shaktitva Foundation in 2015, and that has taken almost 3 years till date and I'm about to do the foundation of this, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Shaktitva is all about. But basically, it's about a Hindu take on issues that affect women in this time. And this transition has, more or less, like pretty much everybody said, this has been an awakening. And what the biggest takeaway from this is that you can do it too. Because there are fantastic people in this crowd today that I want to, acknowledge. There is a fantastic group of people that we mentioned in your Pride project earlier. Vijay Kumar has written a book about his journey. There is a group called Hindu Political Action Committee who are doing fantastic work for Pakistani Hindu refugees. Umaid Ratnaji gave a speech earlier. You should catch up on that. There are people who are coming from all walks of life and contributing in the best way they can to the causes that they care about. And this is the story of activism on the Hindu side, and this has to be taken forward. And lastly, I will just mention that even for this part of the Shaktitva, my co-founder is Anjali George. And I think she is a household name by now, but for those of you who don't know, Sabrimala happened because we didn't take control of the narrative. Some random people, some self-avowed atheist women and women who had no idea about who Shri Ayappa is, who Lord Ayappa is, what kind of devotees are, what even happens in Sabrimala, they took to themselves to give Hindu women some rights. I'm going to tell you what rights you need. You just stay there. So that's the narrative here. And we were just like so frustrated with this narrative, and Anjali is a Malayali, so she was especially hurt by what she saw. So she asked all of us to combine our resources together and end up with a Ready to Wait campaign. And this was the first time in social media history, in fact, where not only that campaign transformed into an organization called People for Dharma, and I saw Shilpa Nayarji here, who is one of the founders, so if you can find her, just make her acquaintance. It transformed into a foundation called People for Dharma. They hired a lawyer called Jay Saidika, who is a fantastic activist himself, and he went to court and presented for the first time our side of the story. This was the only other incident in history that you can see is the Ram Temple movement, where we were able to disprove every single account that they had presented. So we went to the court, Jay Saidika presented our side of the story, and the CJI commended him for his arguments. So this is the power. And we all got together, all of these people got together because of social media. And I agree completely that while it's the mainstream media, at the same time it is social, because it's not a top-down narrative. We are talking to each other. Vikramaditya Thakur randomly calls me and says, Neha ji, I got your contact from here, I need your help, and please, I want to help you as much as I can. And that's how we raised 131 donors for Pakistani Hindu refugees, and we are close to 20 lakhs in donations now. So this is like the power, and you have the power. Come to social media, voice your opinions, tell us about your narrative. If a girl from UP does not present the narrative of what happens in Uttar Pradesh, about what things matter to us, about why we desperately need an anti-Romeo squad, despite all the machinations of the Delhi media to tell us that women were safe at 2 a.m. in Lucknow, I mean please. Under Akhilesh Raj, it is literally called the Gunda Raj. So don't tell us that we were not, we were safe then and we don't need anti-Romeo squad. That is absolutely bullshit. So we have to come to we have to use this platform and we have to continue sharing and continue socializing. And before I get kicked out,
let me ask Shri and Vikasti about how much time we have, because we know we lost some time and how we managed that.
So first of all, sorry for this thing which was beyond our control. Believe it or not, it's not only you are complaining, a lot of messenger came to me from Facebook that why there is no sound. So, that was all from worldwide. So not only from Bharat, not from the US, but a lot of other places. We will probably take 3 or 4 questions maximum. And I would request to limit the question less than 30 seconds and limit the answer less than 1 minute. That will be good conversation, and then you can talk anytime afterwards.
So I have a very,
Namaste, my name is Vinay Bharat. I've been doing video coordination for a long time. I just want to quickly share a story. We've been trying very hard to get a story of India, Chicago Tribune, to cover our story. This morning I got the answer why they're not covering it. There's a full-page ad in Chicago Tribune by our opponents. Now they're sold out. Now what I need from people, anybody from Chicago here, we now take it easy, by the way. We'll demand an editorial meeting to justify where 2,500 Hindus got together and you don't cover about us just because you're sold out to a bunch of people like this. I don't want to mention the names. So we'll take this action. This is from Avatans. That's all. But all I want to say only one thing is, we can talk about it, but unless we take action, go after these big media, and they will listen to us. Thank you.
Okay. So I will start questioning. Please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit down. Okay. Lottery. Yes, let's go over there. 30 seconds. Over there. 30 seconds. Quick question. Just question. No comments, please. Hello.
Yes, please, sir. I have a information.
Please question. Just question, please.
My question is coming straight. The thing is that I know some Khalistani people are collecting money and they are already on it, that Khalistan referendum 2020. That's going big in California and in British Columbia, Surrey, and in Brampton, Canada. So my question is, can we start a campaign that yes, we will surely support Khalistan movement, but if it's held in Surrey, British Columbia, or in Brampton, and they want a separate piece of land in Canada itself, we won't tolerate that nonsense in Punjab again.
Right.
So can we start that campaign?
Yes. Okay. So that's a good suggestion. Let's start campaign about that. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, next one, please.
Has already started their campaign. Please follow Mind.net. We have already started their campaign.
Mind.net.
Mind.net, please follow.
Thank you very much.
Mind.net.
10 seconds comments and one question. Social media has become the blockchain of mass communication. That's what I wanted to just acknowledge there. All your comments. My question is, how do we nurture the new journalists and writers?
Sunanda, do you want to take that?
This is exactly what I felt in 2015. I'm so glad that question is coming, because I felt in 2015 that social media is not our destination. It should only be used as a tool, and it's a very effective tool. So our destination is creating voices and creating institutions. Please understand this. So that is why a Swarajya or a Mind Makers or an Op India, these are institutions that have been created. And at Mind Makers, which I co-founded, we are giving opportunities to people who were not approved, whose writings were not approved by the big corrupt media. But these people have a voice
they have research, this does not mean that we carry unsubstantiated stuff. We don't. We have full editorial diligence. But, so you have to understand that while we are getting onto the other side, we have to do our editorial diligence, we have to have substantiated stuff, and we have to create institutions. That is where the new media persons, that's where the new journalists will come, that is where we will hone them, and that is where the new next generation will come from. The institutions that we create today.
I saw on the minded there is an opportunity for all of us to contribute and that would be editorial.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is an opportunity on mind.net to be shared, and there are things. Just give me 1 second. There is an author called Rajat Mitra who on mind.net, who had never written before, did a research. There's one person who's heard him, who actually did a research and which nobody knew, and the readers, that there is no Hindu temple in Delhi, which is Indraprasth, which is 100 years old. Can you believe that? This is something, I do not want any claps on this. I want you to think about this. There is no Hindu temple in Delhi that is 100 years old, and more than 100 years old. Which is not 100 years old, sir. It's a new thing. There are no ancient temples. Or if they are, they were in hiding. There is no ancient temple in Indraprasth. So these are the stories that we are carrying. No, as Shefali calls them, nepotism and dynasty theory is not going to carry the story.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is very straightforward and simple. So we have a great strength on the ground, like Carter strength from RSS, HSS and everything. But relatively we are weaker on the social media. So what are the tips or something that we can go back and make sure that we do and increase our strength which matches our real strength?
Thank you for asking that, sir. This is a very important point that I've been trying to make to anybody who would listen to me. Because you have to understand that even though we are on social media and even though we are single-handed activists who are coming from different walks of life, this is hard work. And the reason it is hard work is because you have to understand your audience and you have to cater to your audience. And that is what mainstream media does for a full-time job, and we are doing it on the side. So the reason is because you have to understand that the same thing that works for a boy in UP does not work for a man in Mumbai. They are different, and there are social economic stratas that you have to pay attention to. There are backgrounds you have to pay attention to. Something that might resonate in South India because it's part of their daily culture and daily routine does not resonate equally in North India. We had unfortunate amount of very little coverage for Chennai floods back in the day. I actually captured pictures of both vernacular and vernacular regional media as well as English media newspapers. When the Chennai was literally drowning, there was no attention being paid in the north. That sort of improved in Kerala floods. But then we got together, and we are from all different parts of the country, and we started making noise about it, contributing to it. I was even part of a WhatsApp group of volunteers that was coordinating volunteers on the ground. So that was the kind of reach we get, and we have to use it. So the things to learn about is figuring out what narrative works, what connects with the people, and using the right jargon. So that jargon, which is being taught through humanities, through every person in the country, and is being dished out to the masses at best, has to be adopted for you to make your point. So we can keep complaining about not getting enough notice, but if you're not using the jargon, if you're not saying I'm oppressed, I'm a woman of color, I'm a person of color, if you're not saying that, it's not hitting home. So we have to adapt and do some purva paksha, as we say. So we have to understand that.
I just wanted to quickly make another comment here. As a linguist, I could not be quiet here. One of the things that we don't use, there are lots of words that we don't use in language. One of the words I don't use and a lot of people don't use is vernacular. Vernacular is a very colonial word to demean Indian languages. So I know she didn't mean it, but since it came up and the linguist in me just came up and said, okay, so please do not use vernacular to talk about Bharatiya Bhasha. Please use Bharatiya Bhasha in the languages. Thank you.
One of the things which we are finding that the media around the world, especially United Kingdom where I can speak because I've been away, anti-India, anti-Hindu, and everywhere we see. How can you guys can help or any suggestions you can give us?
I'll let Shefali talk about it.
This is not, thank you for asking this question, but this is not just a UK specific question, it's generally the situation all over the world. So I would urge all of us in this room to be more assertive, to speak out. You have a tool in social media and you can use it to maximum effect. We have to build institutions, we have to build platforms, but we can begin with starting to speak our voice. And yes, and let us not, one of the major reasons why the other side gets popular is because we share it. We're so indignant about what they write that we share the links, and most of the people who are actually clicking on those links because they're really angry are our people. If you must share, and I agree that it's important to counter, share snapshots, but do not share links.
Of revenue from what you're saying. You're saying it an angle. Share the link, they get the revenue and they don't care about what you say. So do not share the link, share screenshots.
Do not share the liar, do not share the street, do not share the troll. Do not share nepotism and dynasty TV. Do not share. Use snapshots if you must. And WhatsApp. Do not ignore WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a major opinion maker. So if somebody shares something that you have a problem against, voice your opinion. Because most of the times I have realized it, the silent majority also is on your side. But they are waiting for the first person to say, hey, I disagree with this. If you say that, there will be 5 other people who would say that, yes, I disagree too, yes, I disagree too, yes, this is offensive to me. This happened in the, let me take 1 minute, this happened in the Kathua incident. After the Kathua incident, the kind of demonization that the entire Hindus faced was incredible. And nobody wanted to stick their neck out because the other side then would say, oh, you're defending rapists, and that's a huge charge. Nobody wants to be faced with that. So I saw one WhatsApp thing on my society WhatsApp group, which basically said about, the rape happened in the temple, Revistan, blah, 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 blah. And this happened at 10 o'clock. Nobody had reacted to it till 4 o'clock when I came back. And I said, you know what, this is wrong, this is factually wrong, and this is why it is wrong. And when I put the facts out there, suddenly within 15 minutes, my WhatsApp was buzzing because there were at least 10 people who said that, yes, I agree, these are the facts. That narrative was false. But from 10 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the evening, nobody had said it. So you need to stick your neck out and make that point. Maybe you'll be alone, but you need to do that.
Well, so thank you very much, everybody. So with this, we will conclude this session. And you know what? We live in social media world. Let the samvad continue. We have everybody's, the Twitter handle. We can talk over there since we're talking about social media, or catch them outside. But officially, we are concluding this session. Thank you very much, everyone.
So thank you for that.